Thank you. In your opinion, if nothing changes, when will the recession begin? How long will it last? Or the depression?
Okay, if the health care plan does not pass, and if the cap and trade taxes are not applied, and if the if the Bush tax cuts do not expire, okay, those are the three major issues that are driving us now, then I would say the recovery will probably take 2 to 3 years before we get back below 10% unemployment. And if you believe that those three things are going to happen, that the tax cuts are not going to expire, then I have a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you.
If we regain the Congress, can we stop the health care set in motion by the Democrats?
It will be difficult because we will not have enough Senate to stop a filibuster. However, if the House is in conservative hands, it is the money portion of the government, and it can stop the funding. No funding, no health care plan. That simple.
What is your opinion of the effectiveness of the many czars that we have in our federal government?
I think they're just about as effective as the Russian czars were. And since the Russian czars caused a revolution, stand by.
Would you comment on the real intent of our current government actions? There are some who believe the Cloward and Piven strategy is at work and the destruction of the economy is their real objective.
Obama was trained by a gentleman who learned everything from Saul Alinsky, and Saul Alinsky said, the goal must be to get people to be so despondent with the current system that they will go to any new system. And if unemployment gets bad enough and enough people are dependent, that is what Saul Alinsky said is necessary for a socialist revolution. I can only tell you, it's impossible to know the motives of men, but we do know that is the training that Obama received.
Please give a few examples of things that cut costs.
I'll give you one great example. Let's talk about readiness. What the Navy did, they found out, CNO Vern Clark said, we're burning up our Naval Air Force, and one of these days I'm going to need the darn thing. So every year, Naval Aviation asks for another $1 billion, higher and higher every year. Well, here's what the Navy did. They set a readiness metric on how many traps squadrons should fly off of aircraft carriers. How often should they fly off the aircraft carrier to stay in a state of readiness? They found out that some squadrons were flying 60% more than the readiness metric because, of course, the pilots got flight pay, right? So there was about 20% of the squadrons that were actually below the readiness metric that was defined. So by simply defining what the readiness metric was, that single fleet-driven metric, everything, all the costs before were looked at and said, is this in excess of that metric? If it is, we're going to stop it. Are you below the metric? We're going to spend more on you then. This saved $119 million the first year. Just in aviation fuel and the extra mechanics. Then they took a look at some things that were wrong with the F-18. The auxiliary power unit was very defective. So they put together an industry task force, of which I was not a part, and they were able to increase the reliability by a factor of 10. Now, every aircraft carrier had heaps of these artillery power units, mountains of them, that they could get rid of and stop putting aboard ships. But then there was another government agency that had tens of mountains of these things that they no longer needed. And they complained to the Navy saying, gee, you've stopped using these 8 auxiliary power units. How are we going to possibly justify our budget? Touchdown. That's why it has to come from the President of the United States. Every federal manager must be rated on, did you cut your budget by 20% and still achieve the mission? Now, I have a friend who met with Bill Perry, who was the Secretary of Defense, that noticed that his company was doing a great job cutting costs. He said, how can I do that in the government? He says, very simple, Bill. You just tell all the government agencies, your budget's going to be cut 20% next year. You better get all the waste out. We both know it's there. Get trained, learn the lean method, eliminate it. You don't get people to voluntarily reduce budgets. You cut the budget and then they learn to live within it because you know the costs are there.
What can we do to try to stop the cruel, destructive, job-killing agenda of the liberal Democrats?
Vote for those candidates who will support a 50% tax reduction for small business and the other issues I've mentioned. I don't care whether they're Democrats, Republicans, or independents. The touchstone has to be not what they say, but what they're willing to commit to and do. We're beyond the point of antics and words. We've had enough lofty rhetoric, haven't we?
I am visiting from Michigan. Question, what can this group do to get young people to attend?
I want to take you back to 1964. Many of you are old enough to remember that. We had a lot of young people very interested in conservative initiatives, didn't we? Okay? This message we have is powerful, and it's American, not Marxist. Many of our young people don't know the dangers posed by socialism and Marxism in this country. Don't know it. The book you have in the back is a first attempt at least setting the stage as to what we can do to help government right now. My next book, however, is going to be called Obama in His Own Words. I will say nothing. I merely will quote what Obama has said on National Public Radio and in his own 2 books, and then I will explain what it means. When Obama says, in Kenya, it was wonderful before the English came, the elders regulated all the plantings, and they told each family they had to help one another. Instead of helping just each other, themselves, had to help each other, you see. And the elders would distribute the food after it was produced, not the person that produced it. If you change the word elder to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, you get the Soviet collective farm process. People don't know that. Young people don't know this anymore. You all remember this. They don't know it. I intend to educate them. And then you're going to see a thunderclap of power, just as we saw in 1964. It wasn't enough to get Barry Goldwater over the edge because of some other issues, but nevertheless, we can do this, and we should not resolve to not. We are going to go forward. It's a major thrust of Strong America Now. Yes.
On books, tell us what would you suggest the must-reads so we can understand the past or future and help us better know what is ahead. What are the 3 books?
I'd like to just give you 2 books, if you don't mind. First of all, of course, the free book you've got in the back is one, because it distills an awful lot of data from dozens of books that I've read. One of the nice things about being a retired executive is you got lots of time to sit and read and talk to people. The second book I most like to understand what's going on is The Great Depression by Murray Rothbard. That's Rothbard. And that book has more data in it on what caused the Depression that is valid than I've ever seen. You know, we had stagflation in the 1970s. Do you remember that? The Keynesians couldn't explain it. Those people who want to, just have government subsidize everything, they couldn't explain how it happened. The monetarists couldn't understand it. But this individual, this school of economics, is able. But most importantly, what good is science? It's only good if you can predict things with it, right? And prevent them. And the predictive power that you'll find in this book allows us then to make strong assertions as to what it takes to turn this economy around. So those are the 2 books. Read SOS, Our Economy is Sinking, and the second book, The Great Depression by Murray Rothbard.
Since demand must precede the creation of businesses, how can you create all of these executive core businesses all at once?
Yes, you can't do it all at once. That's why I say you need to recruit the 100,000 executives, open for business to listen to new ideas. Only 1 in 10 of these new ideas is going to be worthy of getting private support, correct? And that's the touchstone. If you get people to invest their hard-earned money in an entrepreneurial venture and maybe serve as a director, you've got something there. Now, in terms of, what was the question again? Demand. People in government always say the same thing. Well, how can we know these small businesses are going to take these tax dollars they save? What can they do with them? How can they find some new demand? Believe me, an entrepreneur that's trying to make money, who knows he's going to be able to keep most of it, will figure it out. They'll figure it out. There's another old saying I like to give you, which always motivated me, because in my own business career, I had some gigantic ups and some gigantic downs, as we all do in business, right? Dr. Sam Johnson said in 1775, he said, "Depend upon it, if a man knows he's going to be hung within the month, it concentrates the mind wonderfully." And believe me, these entrepreneurs, when they're facing bankruptcy, they'll figure out a way around it, believe me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike George. Thank you.